listeners. Welcome to the Can Innovate podcast, where we highlight Canadian innovators who are changing the game. I'm Sapna Malhotra, your proud Canadian host. The Can Innovate podcast is about providing industry insights from Canadian innovators that are doing it. They are really crushing it out there in the industry. These innovators share insightful thought leadership, tips, tricks, tactics that we can all adopt. Plus, they even share their own entrepreneurial tales of successes and failures, and they really show us what we can learn. So let's continue to innovate our own businesses, lives, and careers. And if you know of any Canadian innovators that should be featured, drop us a line. You know I love getting feedback and hearing from everyone. You can contact me via email, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and of course, hint, hint, even in a review. All right, let's get to this episode. This is really exciting as one of our listeners, Natasha Kalra from the UK, actually recommended Side Door Access to be featured. And so we went and we found and we got Laura Simpson, who is with us today, who is one of the co-founders and CEO of Side Door Access. She is a living large DNA, music pumping through her veins, a music industry professional. She lives in Halifax, Nova Scotia. She actually also founded the Syrup Factory, which began hosting house concerts in 2011, offering strategies and services to artists in 2015. She's also been an organizer in the art scene since she was 14 years old, going to all age shows and then eventually taking me live music, photography, and freelancing, writing about shows and artists, which led her to become a journalist for 7 years with CBC and Rogers Radio. Eventually, she found her way back to the music world and has been involved in numerous initiatives, from working as an export development officer and communication manager for Music Nova Scotia. There's also the Halifax Jazz Festival, the CAPACOA, the East Coast Music Association. In 2015, Laura even mentored with some top-tier music marketing teams at Blackbox in LA. She's even juried on Music Nova Scotia, Halifax Pop Explosion, CBC Music Search Light competition, and the Junos. And now one of the co-founders and the CEO of Side Door Access, where they have a dream of making things better for touring artists and live music fans. Wow, seriously, Laura, music is definitely in your DNA.
Yeah, it's kind of nonstop. It's great.
It's awesome. So did I miss anything in your introduction?
No, I have a couple of kids and a dog and a husband. So the rest of my time is taken up by that. Yep.
Oh, I love it. I love it. So what exactly is Side Door Access?
So Side Door is basically a company that we've built on tech in order to make it easier for artists who are touring to find places to tour and also to have better profit margins. So we look for basically venues that are low overhead, including houses and cafes and bookstores and churches, and people who want to offer that space for a show. And we have a split so that the artist gets the majority of the revenue. And we offer a little bit to the host to cover costs. And then we take a typical booking fee that you would, in the industry right now. But we're doing it all virtually, and we're building the tech so that we try to create almost like a Tinder style match between a host and an artist. We just use their preferences that they put in, and instantly they're going to get back basically a match of like, hey, this sounds like you could play here at this time. And then it's an automatic contract that's made. And the two parties can decide what they want to do with that show, and they're off to the races. We do all the ticketing. We help with the promotion. We support them with all sorts of best practices because I'm a host myself. I have been for 7 years, and my co-founder is Dan Mangan, who is a Juno award-winning artist in Canada, and he built his career on doing house concerts, and now he's doing huge concerts. And so both of us have seen both sides of that kind of show offer. So yeah, we just wanted to find a way to make it a little bit easier for artists who are just constantly struggling to make a living while they're touring.
Oh, that's amazing. So what is the most interesting kind of venue that you've used so far?
Oh, that's a great question. We have one of the most beautiful venues I've seen has been this church in BC, and they just have all these murals all over the walls, and they love music. And so they just really embraced us quite a bit. And we have a couple of breweries on the list as well. And that's really interesting. I went to see a show here in Halifax, and the giant vats of beer in the background of the artist playing, and everybody's having like this beautiful craft beer while they're listening to music. So that's been fun.
Oh, that's amazing. And how did this idea all come about? Was it coming from the artists that they had a need for this, or was there something else happening in the industry?
Well, it's funny. So Dan and I didn't know each other, and we both came upon this as a solution independently. And so from my point of view, I had been hosting, and I always knew that vibe, the shows was like the most magical thing I could imagine. People could bring their kids, they could just BYOB, and we loved hosting in our house. We can fit about 60 people here, and it just became something that I looked forward to doing every couple of months. And I just realized how much more money the artists can take home from shows like that. And so in the daytime, I was working with artists who were touring, and they were just coming home in debt after touring over and over and over again. I was like, well, this is crazy. So I didn't really conceive of how to do it, but I knew house concerts were part of the equation. So meanwhile, Dan has sort of a sub-label of Arts and Crafts, which is the label he's on in Canada. And he was working with artists, and so he knew that house concerts worked really well. So he was going back out to his audience, who's pretty vast and engaged, and he asked those people if they wanted to host his artists at their house. So he basically started a house concert network just for the artists that he was working with. Anyway, fast forward, my friend, who's an artist, Rich O'Coin, introduced us because he knew that we were both trying to work on the same problem. And so we met in January of 2016. And we basically worked on this project together off and on for a little bit. And then we founded Side Door.
That's amazing. Was it hard to get us off the ground?
Well, I mean, yes, because there's not like what we were doing. There are house concert networks, and there's been house concerts forever. So we're not reinventing the wheel there, but we really had an idea of this sort of like the speed in which that people wanted to have instant gratification, that they wanted to book things fast and they wanted to have the matches make sense. And so that just wasn't happening. It's very, very human oriented when you're booking, and there's so many gatekeepers and there's so many barriers to entry. So we wanted to just remove all of that. So we really kind of were making it up as we went along. So we've discovered a lot as we've tested things out and found out about our competitors and other people who are doing things like Airbnb is now doing Airbnb concerts, which made me want to stab my eyes out. But it's fine. They're approaching it from a tourism perspective and not about the artists. And we are always about the artists. We're always looking to draw in artists of every level to trust us, because we're doing it because of them and for them. So everything we build is with them in mind.
Oh, that's amazing. So it's very artist-centric.
Right, exactly.
I love that. So how does this really work? So if I'm an artist, what would that journey look like? Or if I was a consumer and wanted to know more about this, what would that look like?
So if you're an artist, basically you fill out a profile. We're getting close to making it something that's filled in, like you can grab your Facebook artist profile and just sort of dump a bunch of the information in there. But it just takes the normal, bunch of stuff that you would put in any profile, like your website and all that stuff for an artist profile. But then we ask you questions like, what is your ideal situation for a show? Do you want people to be sitting? Do you want them to be quiet? Do you want them to be dancing? What kind of size of venue are you looking for? What is your minimum requirement for how much money you need on each show? Because sometimes people are paying session musicians, etc. So we ask all those questions of the artists. Same time we ask hosts, we say, tell us who you want to host, what your place is like, what kind of show you want to host. If you only like jazz, that's fine. We'll only match you with jazz musicians. And so we get all that information, and then we basically mash them together to find those perfect matches. And then once the show contract is signed, it's basically like an auto-filled out contract based on all of the information they've given us. And so they just say, oh, yeah, that looks great. Or they say, no, we're going to change a couple of things. And then a ticket link is created and we promote it out to the world. And from the consumer point of view, currently it's just a link. It's a Facebook event with a link, or it's in an email from the artist with a link. In the future, we're going to have an actual app so that you could do a one-click purchase or even purchase at the door. So we're getting close to that, but we're not quite there yet. But it's a pretty, typical situation from the audience point of view. You purchase a ticket. Right now, we're doing it that you're greeted by name because there's such small shows. So you show up and be like, hello, welcome to the show. This is, your seat over here if you want to put your beer in the fridge or, whatever you want to do. So it's very much like you're being hosted rather than, being patted down at the door like some venues,
Yeah.
So we just wanted to feel like everyone's being served for the needs that they have.
Oh, I love that. I love that. So if I wanted to host an event, because I say I had a big, huge backyard, could I do that?
You absolutely can. So you can sign up right now. We have a web form. We're slowly making those web forms a little more user friendly so that maybe if it's too much information to go through right now, we'll chunk it out and, it can get those things over time. So you would sign up and say, I have this backyard. I only want to host in the summer because it's warm then and I can't host in the winter, whatever your circumstances are. And that's when we'll contact you and give you some options.
Oh, what a fun way to engage with the artists, that environment. I could just feel it. I could just feel the passion and the creativity just kind of moving in all the different, and it's so personable too. It's so personalized. What a fun experience. Mm-hmm. No wonder one of our listeners nominated you guys. You guys are really changing the music industry, the way things work.
Oh yeah, we're trying.
You're trying. So what excites you most about this industry?
I've always been hanging around musicians, but just the arts scene in general. My husband's a filmmaker, and we, as the world in general moves farther and farther away from human experiences, it's made me really want to champion them more and more. And the most human, most in the moment, being present feeling I've ever had is at a very small show. And small shows can be 20 people to even 100 people is still pretty good. And it's just where you can be within, speaking distance from the artist, and you can see how they're moving their fingers on the guitar, or you can feel the vibrations of the instruments, or you can, have a laugh with the people around you at a joke, and it just feels like you're all in that moment together. And so for me, that's the driving force of all of it.
I love that. That's really amazing. And I really loved how you talked about you've learned a lot of lessons as you kind of been progressing down this path. And has there been any big aha moments that you kind of went, oh, I wish I knew, or I wish someone had told me?
Oh my gosh. So many aha moments are kind of boring actually, but for me it was 7 weeks of time, for instance, figuring out taxes. So we have to charge tax on the ticket, and then we have to, some people are charging tax as hosts, or most are not. Some people are charging tax as artists, some are not. So we're actually custom building something because we auto split the payments and pay people right after the show. So as we're building that, we're also building in whether or not they're charging tax. And so if we get that right, it's actually, for a three-sided market company, it's actually an essential thing. And we're hoping that with that build, it might actually be something that other companies could white label.
No, that's amazing. Oh, you know what? But seriously, financials and taxes, it really is a land of mystery, and it's changing all the time too, right? Yeah. I can only imagine the complexity with all the different provinces and the territories. And then I'm not even sure, are you only in Canada, or are you guys operating in the US as well, or?
We're about to have our first show in the US. So we've booked 100 shows so far in 9 months. And so that's been ramping up really quickly. But we have most of our shows in Canada, and then we have a few hosts in Europe as well. And the big barrier is so the first month we had one show, $500 in revenue, and that was it. February, we had, I think, 16 shows and 17,000 in revenue. So it's just been a kind of big jump. And so for us, that we're on the human computering scale right now. We haven't even got to the self-booking stage, which we'll get to by the end of the year. When we get to self-booking, we're talking about, more like 1,000 to 2,000 shows a year, and the ability for people to go in and do things really fast, no matter where they live in the world.
I love that. That's going to be amazing. So I guess we've got a lot of international listeners and audience. So I guess we could easily say it's coming to you soon.
It really is, yeah.
You gotta love technology, how it's making everything so much more easier to once you kind of got the foundations in place.
Exactly.
It's amazing. So tell me, in this journey, was there any kind of tools or resources you're able to leverage from other, like the government or other areas, or something that you wish you could have had besides, the tax?
Oh, well, I've taken advantage of quite a number of resources, everything from existing SaaS companies that, like I knew how to use a platform called Podio, which I used to, basically when I was a funding program officer, I took our entire funding program that was paper-based and put it online using Podio, which is like basically an operational backend for project management. And so that I transferred as our backend for our current company. We're going to go off of it soon, but just knowing how to use that platform and navigating it was essential to sort of get us off the ground. Going from 2 weeks to book a show to 2 hours to book a show was a really big advantage. But yeah, the people networks are my greatest resource. The more people I talk to, the more people are like, oh, I've got this person who knows about that, or taxes. That's how I found about tax stuff. And just talking to more and more people who've been through those experiences. I ended up going to a conference in Portland, Oregon that was called DazzleCon, which was amazing because it's basically based on the idea that not every company wants to be a so-called unicorn, and that maybe you want to be a zebra, which is the strong and steady, but also innovative kind of company. So you got to look it up. The zebra movement is amazing in the US. And so I got to go to their first conference as a zebra founder. And that network has been extraordinary. It's made me think of all sorts of different, ways to structure our business or ways to finance the company and stuff that you don't even think about unless you're talking to those people. So people have been the greatest resource.
That's awesome. I like that idea. You're right. Not everyone does want to be a unicorn. I think we hear about it all the time in the newspapers about looking for the next unicorn. I mean, there's unicorn cakes and, little cards everywhere. So, yeah, I like that. Zebra. I prefer to be, if I was going to be an animal, I'd probably be a giraffe. Tall, gentle, and friendly.
I love it.
So is there any kind of sales or marketing tip you could kind of, share with us? I mean, getting it off the ground and networking are massive.
So our company is really going to survive and thrive based on the trust that we have by influencers. And in our market, it's artists who have a name and have an audience who know us and trust us and endorse us. So, for example, we have a member of Broken Social Scene who's both become an advisor and an investor. We have people who are running labels, even booking agents who would seemingly be a competition for us or have been endorsing us because they see that there's a need and that they're willing to work with us and the way that we're formatting this business. So trust is the biggest thing that we look for in order to sell to other people. So we can say, look, we are endorsed and have the confidence of these people. And we use them as almost like micro influencers to talk about the company. So it feels like suddenly it's everywhere all at once. That's sort of our goal for the end of 2018, is that suddenly we're everywhere. That's what I'd love.
Well, I'm sure you will. I mean, it's so different and unique, and I love that human kind of experience that you're bringing out. It just it's like those places where you go for a restaurant and you just enjoy the ambiance so much, and it's not so much the quality of just the food, but it's the people that are there, all the different senses that gets it. I love how you were talking about the guitar music. I could feel it. You can just feel you can feel the vibration.
Good.
So, do you have a favorite business philosophy or a favorite quote to kind of keep things moving and driving in the right direction?
I read Chouinard's book, Let My People Go Surfing, the one who founded Patagonia. And that company is not a tech company or, even maybe considered innovative in some circles, but they really were. And what I admired about his approach was that he stayed so true to his personal philosophy and motivation for doing it. And that's been a guiding force for us, is that, Dan and I I had other options in my life. I was, I'm 39. It's not like I was, I'm 20 and I have all the energy and the time in the world to make a startup happen. But this is something that I I need to have in the world. I need to do it, and I need to do it in the way that I know is right. I don't want artists to be exploited anymore, and I want to make sure that they're taken care of properly. And at the same time, I want audiences to be treated well. And so for us, it's like that the philosophy that I read about from Chouinard was, how do you just maintain and hold steady with that philosophy and that motivating factor that got you going?
Oh, that's key. That is key. I'm going to have to check that out for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So being that you've got all these things that you're juggling, the kids, the dog that you mentioned,
running this bit, I'm really happy right now.
The business that you're running and everything else in a household, is there a popular productivity tool that you utilize?
Oh, yeah. I have a really favorite one, and you used it actually to get in touch, is the Calendly thing, which is like a dead simple tool, but it's basically an executive assistant for making your meeting bookings, because I just am terrible at doing the back and forth with, can we meet then? Or how about this? Or how about this? And then this way people can just go into my calendar and see when I'm free and just book an appointment with me. And I'm like, great, I'll talk to you then.
It's such a time saver, honestly. I use Acuity Scheduler, and I feel the same way. It's just, no more back and forth, and people can just book it and you're good to go.
Exactly.
I love that. So I know you mentioned a book regarding your philosophies, but is there a book that you're currently reading or something that really inspired you?
I am just starting to dig into Chris Hadfield's book, The Astronaut, which somebody lent me. Actually, my first employee lent me. So I'm about to dig into that. And what else? Oh my gosh. I have a few audiobooks that I've been listening to as well. I'm just about to listen to Tiffany Haddish's The Last Black Unicorn, because basically if I'm not working, I'm either going to see music, but I love listening or watching comedy. I'm so into comedy. So Tiffany Haddish is my new favorite.
Wow, I got to check that out.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you stay kind of a personal habit that kind of helps you keep the juices flowing?
If I was being really, idealistic and hopeful about what my schedule is really like, I'd be like, oh, I'm doing yoga all the time and meditating and swimming the way that I wish I was, but I'm not. I'm really not. I'm not keeping up to my schedule. So honestly, what keeps me really sane is I walk the dog every single day for about an hour, and it clears my head. And just moving outside, being outside in fresh air and moving is as good as I can get to meditation at this stage of the game. That personal habit has really done a lot for just making me more productive later in the day.
Now you make me want to get a dog.
I mean, they're not going to tell you that you don't have to go out today. They're always going to make you do it.
That's fantastic. And we have a lot of international listeners out there. So is there a favorite Canadian hotspot, restaurant, city, town, festival that you would recommend or you love when you get some downtime, if you get downtown?
Yeah, well, so I'm in Halifax, Nova Scotia, which is, the other time zone in Canada that nobody knows about. And then there's one farther than us. Most people think that Canada ends at Montreal. There's a whole other 4 provinces out here. So in Halifax, we have such a growing scene, actually where I live in the north end of Halifax, of restaurants and craft breweries. And we actually went to this tiny little place just recently that opened up. Oh my gosh, I'm going to forget their name. Basically, anything on Agricola is a street up in the north end. There's the Brasserie. Lion and Bright has a great dance night, which, as a 39-year-old, finding a dance place is impossible, but they have a really great dance night. Yeah, and then the Seahorse and the Marquee, which is down on Gaudjon Street in Halifax, is they're always going to put on great music there. So if I go to a bigger show, that's where I go.
Nice. And of course, the seafood out at Nova Scotia.
Absolutely. There's so much good seafood. And you forget about how great it is until you go somewhere else and you order seafood in Chicago and you're like, wait a second. No.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not the same. It's not the same. This is amazing. And finally, Laura, how can our listeners connect with you?
Well, I have 4 social media accounts for every company, basically. So I'm always on Twitter. That's probably, if you check in with me at Nova Scotia Music, that's the quickest and fastest way to find me online. But all of the companies, so Side Door, the Syrup Factory, and then I have an event that I do called Make Do You Camp. All of those have pages and, Twitter handles and Instagram accounts. But if you find me on Twitter at Nova Scotia Music, that's where I will respond.
Excellent. Well, I'll put that in the show notes for all of our listeners. That is great. Thank you so much, Laura. I really appreciate your time and making the effort to be on this. This has been actually really exciting, especially since we're recording on a Friday. It's got me ready to pumped in for the weekend.
Yeah, go see some music.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Sapna. I really appreciated the opportunity.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, innovators, for joining us this week. Our Facebook page is moving and growing each week, so please join us. I post a lot of interesting articles about Canadian innovation trends, the movers, the shakers, plus things that I think are just funny. And if you know any Canadian innovators that should be featured, drop us a line. I love getting feedback and hearing from everyone. You can contact me on email, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and of course, hint, hint, even in the review. I'm still channeling Gary V, that ratings and reviews are my oxygen. And remember, this is our podcast. I look forward to hearing and chatting with you next week.